Leo, you've finally passed the test. The waiting is over. Your silence wasn't punishment, it was preparation. If you're watching this right now, there's something inside you that already knows that. It's not random that you landed here, and it's certainly not by chance that you're hearing this message on this exact day. September 16, 2025, is a turning point. And you didn't stumble upon this video, you arrived because the universe decided it was time to tell you the truth. You've already done the hard part. Now the story changes. You see, this isn't one of those typical horoscope videos where you wait for the stars to do something magical on your behalf. This is a conversation between two souls who've seen enough silence to know that when things go quiet, that's when the real transformation happens. And you, Leo, have been in that space for a while now. Plans stalled. Relationships faded. The things that used to light you up lost their spark. Not because you failed, but because something deeper was being rewired. Let's be clear, you weren't lost. You were being recalibrated. The astrological weather confirms it. Today, Jupiter, the planet of growth and grace, is forming a rare trine with Saturn, the planet of structure and soul contracts. And with the moon anchored in stable Taurus, something long dormant within you is starting to rise. That's not poetry. That's alignment. You are being called into the version of yourself that no longer has to hustle to be seen. The version of you that walks into a room and doesn't need to prove anything. So if you've been asking, why has it felt so still lately? Why does it seem like the world forgot about me? It hasn't. You were in the final room of the test. The one where no instructions are written on the wall. The one where you only pass by listening inward. And guess what? You did. This video exists for one reason, to confirm what your soul already suspects. That the silence is ending. That the next chapter won't require you to chase, perform, or prove. It will only ask you to show up as who you already are. And this isn't just about fatigue, it's about ownership. About walking into your future without dragging your past like a heavy suitcase behind you. Now, before we go deeper, I want to say this: I don't take your time lightly. The fact that you're here with me means something. I see you. I feel you. And whether this is your first video or you've been part of this space for a while, I'm grateful you pressed play. Every like, every comment, every subscription, those aren't just engagement metrics. They're energetic agreements. They're how we build this container together. And your presence here isn't just a scroll through moment, it's a declaration. So do something small but meaningful for yourself right now. Drop a comment below. Just write, I'm ready to receive what's mine. It may seem simple, but that's how alignment works. Tiny shifts with massive ripple effects. Because Leo, this isn't a video to entertain you. It's here to hand you back your crown. To remind you that you already passed the exam no one else saw you taking. And now, the world is about to see the version of you that quietly rose through the fire. So stay with me. You'll want to hear everything the universe is about to reveal. Trust me, what's coming next will explain everything. It's strange, isn't it, Leo? How life can look exactly the same on the outside, and yet inside, you know you've changed. The way you walk through the world feels different. The way you respond to delays, detours, disappointments, it's softer, steadier, more grounded somehow. And the truth is, no one really teaches us how to recognize that kind of growth. Because the kind of transformation you've just been through, it wasn't loud. It wasn't broadcasted. It didn't come with a certificate or celebration. It came in quiet moments of decision, in silent nights where you refused to give up, even when no one else was watching. That's the thing about the kind of test you've just passed, that it wasn't the kind where someone tells you it's happening. There were no clear rules, no scantrons or rubrics, no congratulations at the end. It was the kind where the only person who knew the pressure you were under was you. And still, Leo, you stayed. You showed up. You kept going. Even when the results were invisible. Even when life didn't clap for your efforts. You chose truth over ease. You chose self-respect over approval. And if no one has said this to you yet, allow me to be the first: that matters more than you know. Sometimes we mistake silence for rejection. But silence is often where the universe does the deepest work. Just like seeds grow in the dark before they break through the soil, your strength, your clarity, and your courage were formed in that space where it seemed like nothing was happening. But something was happening. Something foundational. Something holy. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. Astrologically, today's alignment of the moon in Taurus confirms that truth. Taurus doesn't rush. It roots. It stabilizes. And when the moon sits in Taurus, it whispers, your peace is not something you find, it's something you become. You've been becoming that, Leo. Not the version of yourself that needs external validation to feel worthy, but the one who can look at your own reflection and know exactly how far you've come. It's easy to dismiss internal shifts because they're not immediately visible. But if you've been feeling like your inner world no longer matches the old spaces you used to fit into, you're not imagining things. You're evolving. And I know how lonely that can feel. When your spirit starts outgrowing the environments, habits, or even relationships that once felt like home, the in-between season can feel like a void. But that void isn't emptiness, it's sacred ground. It's where the foundation for what comes next is being laid. And that brings us back to today. The message of this moment isn't just that you've been tested, it's that you've been seen. You've been shaped, not shattered. And now, you're standing at the threshold of a life that finally reflects the quiet work your soul has been doing all along. So here's what I invite you to do, Leo: pause, even just for a moment, and acknowledge how far you've come. Not in metrics or milestones, but in self-respect, in emotional maturity, in your capacity to keep going with grace. Write it down. Say it out loud. Or leave it in the comments as your witness to this moment. I know I've changed. Because the truth is, you have. And even if the world hasn't fully caught up to that truth yet, your spirit has. And that's more than enough. Some silences feel empty. Others feel heavy, like they're pressing down on your chest with a weight you can't quite name. And then there's the kind you've just come out of, Leo, the kind that doesn't just press, but reshapes. The kind that comes after the noise dies down, after the external momentum fades, and you're left sitting with yourself in the rawest, most honest way possible. That silence wasn't empty space. It was sacred ground. You weren't stuck. You were being recalibrated. It's easy to mistake quiet seasons for punishment, especially when you're used to being the one who lights up the room, the one others look to for confidence and clarity. But what happens when the fire dims and no one's watching? That's when the real work begins. In astrology, we talk about energetic realignment as if it's a concept. But in real life, it's felt in quiet mornings when you wake up and realize you're no longer chasing after what you used to crave. It's the pause before saying yes to something you would have rushed into before. It's the ache of outgrowing a version of yourself that once felt like home. What you've just moved through wasn't a void, it was a shift. A reset. And during that time, 3 major things were happening behind the scenes, even if you didn't notice them right away. First, your relationships began to filter themselves. People who no longer resonated with the frequency you were growing into started fading. It didn't have to be dramatic, some simply drifted. Others left with tension. Either way, it wasn't rejection. It was resonance doing its job. Your energy started to refine itself, and those who were meant to come with you naturally stayed. Second, your beliefs started to shed. Maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but slowly, the need for external validation lost its grip. You began to see that your worth had nothing to do with applause, status, or titles. It wasn't loud, but it was revolutionary. You stopped measuring success by what the world clapped for and started measuring it by how peaceful your heart felt. That's a kind of freedom most people never give themselves permission to claim. And third, your inner strength was forged not in moments of big wins, but in the moments no one saw. You developed a kind of spiritual endurance. You kept showing up for your life without proof, without confirmation, without a roadmap. That kind of faith, raw, unglamorous, persistent, is what creates the kind of stability that no outside condition can shake. You've built something inside you that is finally strong enough to hold what's coming next. The moon resting in Taurus today supports this truth. Taurus doesn't rush. It doesn't seek drama. It stabilizes. It listens. And that's what you've been doing, Leo, learning how to listen deeper than the noise, how to root into what's real. Numerologically, the number 7 carries the vibration of inner awakening, of turning inward to seek wisdom rather than reaching outward for distractions. And if you've been seeing this number lately, that's not coincidence. It's confirmation. So today, take a moment for yourself. Sit down with a journal and write the words, "I am aligned with what's meant for me." Let that be your morning anchor. Let that be your way of honoring the work you did in the quiet. If it feels right, share one thing you've let go of recently in the comments. Someone else might need to hear it. Because your story, your silence, your breakthrough, it's not just for you. It's for someone still walking through their own. And your words might be the whisper they've been waiting for. Fear has a clever way of sounding like truth when you've heard it long enough. And for many of you, Leo, it hasn't been a scream, it's been a whisper. A subtle echo in your thoughts that tells you, what if I fail? Or, what if I'm not enough? It doesn't come with flashing red lights or clear signs that it's holding you back. It hides in hesitation. In procrastination. In all the times you've said, not yet, to something you secretly wanted because somewhere along the way, fear convinced you it wasn't for you. But let me say this as plainly as I can, those fears you've been carrying, those old internal scripts, didn't belong to the version of you standing here now. They were written during a different chapter. That chapter is over. The door in front of you, the one you've been waiting so long to walk through, won't open with those old passwords. This new reality has its own access code, and it begins with choosing to believe that your past no longer defines your potential. The universe is presenting you with a clean threshold now. But it's asking you to cross without the baggage of expired beliefs. It's like trying to use an outdated keycard at a hotel you no longer live in. The system doesn't recognize it anymore. That's not rejection, that's protection. You've outgrown that frequency. Now, the only way forward is through conscious release. Here's what that looks like in real life. First, name the fear. Give it form. Write it down on paper. It sounds simple, but pulling it out of the shadows and into the light weakens its grip. Say it plainly: I'm afraid I'm not qualified. I'm scared of being seen and then rejected. I fear losing everything if I try. Whatever it is, put it on the page. Call it out. Then, thank it. That may sound strange, but fear isn't your enemy. It was once your protector. It kept you cautious when caution served you. It helped you survive when survival was all you had energy for. But now? Now it's like a security system that keeps going off even though the danger is gone. So you say, thank you. I see you. But you don't get to drive anymore. And finalito the thing. Not the big, overwhelming thing. Just one small action that moves you in the direction of your new self. Send the message. Make the phone call. Apply for the thing you thought was too big. Post the video. Start the idea. The smallest shift in behavior creates the biggest shift in energy. That's how momentum builds. From a financial standpoint, this is more than spiritual metaphor. There's a direct energetic link between fear and financial stagnation. When you operate from fear, you unconsciously block receptivity. But when you act from alignment, abundance begins to move. That's not magic, it's vibration. And with Earth signs strong in the late September sky, especially for those influenced by Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, there's an opportunity coming that has the power to stabilize you in ways you didn't think were possible. Watch for connections tied to the numbers 8, 3, or 11. They may carry a message or open a door. If you've been feeling stuck, anxious, or unsure how to shift the energy, try this. Each night, lay down and breathe using the 478 method. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. It's not just a calming technique, it's a pattern that mirrors surrender and release. Let your nervous system practice what your heart is trying to learn. It's safe now. So here's your gentle challenge. Share in the comments one fear you're ready to leave behind. It doesn't have to be poetic. It just has to be honest. Because sometimes, saying it out loud is the first act of reclaiming your power. And Leo, everything ahead of you is too valuable to let fear write the rest of your story. Let's turn the page together. Some people survive the fire just to say they made it out. But Leo, you didn't just survive something, and you stayed lit. That light didn't fade when it got dark. It grew stronger. Quietly, steadily. And now, it's not just about carrying that light for yourself, it's about using it to guide others who are still walking through the same night you already made it out of. This part of your journey isn't about proving anything. You already did that when you kept showing up through the silence, through the uncertainty, through the moments when you didn't know what was next but chose to move forward anyway. What's happening now is deeper. The universe is tapping you on the shoulder, gently but firmly, saying, it's time. Not time to go back to how things were, but time to step forward and let who you've become do what only you can do. In astrology, Leo is the sign of the heart, of expression, of warmth. And when a Leo has been refined by difficulty, when their inner fire has been shaped by patience and pain, what they offer the world is not just inspiration, but healing. You're no longer just a flame keeping yourself warm. You are a torch, a beacon. And what you've carried through your darkest moments is now medicine for someone else. Think of a single candle lighting a dark room. Now imagine that same candle lighting another, then another, and another. The flame doesn't shrink. It doesn't weaken. It multiplies. That's you. That's what you're here to do now, not in some dramatic, performative way, but in the everyday choices you make. Your story. Your voice. Your perspective. It matters more than you think. That thing you went through? Someone else is going through it right now. And they may not need a perfect answer, they may just need to hear someone say, me too. This is why the timing matters. Astrologically, between September 21st and 30th, there's an energetic opening for connection and expression, especially for those with strong Leo placements. Invitations may come in subtle ways, a friend mentioning a collaboration, someone asking for your advice, an opportunity to speak or lead where you once stayed silent. These aren't just social moments. They're sacred nudges. Don't ignore them. You've been prepared for this. If you've been sitting on an idea, maybe a project, a creative concept, something that keeps tugging at you in quiet moments, this is your sign. That idea chose you for a reason. Maybe it's a community initiative, a piece of writing, a podcast, a small business, a workshop, a piece of art. Whatever it is, it's time to let it live outside your mind. You don't need it to be perfect. You just need to begin. And sometimes, beginning looks like saying it out loud. So if you're holding something in your heart, an idea, a dream, a vision, write it in the comments. Not for me, but for you. Say it out loud. Let the seed hit the ground. Let this be the moment it becomes real. Because when you show up like that, Leo, you give the rest of us permission to do the same. You didn't come all this way to play small. You came to shine so others could remember their light too. And now, the world's been waiting long enough. It's your turn to step forward. Not as someone trying to prove their worth, but as someone who knows they've already earned their place. There comes a moment, quiet but undeniable, when the waiting no longer makes sense. When the pause that once felt protective starts to feel like a delay. That moment, Leo, is today. September 16th is not just a date on a calendar. It's a marker in your soul's journey. The shift has already happened. What you're feeling now isn't anticipation, it's recognition. Everything you've been sensing, those repeated numbers, that dream that keeps circling back, the people who've resurfaced after years, none of it is random. It's the universe confirming, we're ready when you are. Energetically speaking, today is not about receiving new information. It's about finally listening to what's been trying to reach you all along. The cosmic system update has completed. You've done the internal work. You've been stripped down, reset, reprogrammed, not in some magical overnight way, but slowly, in the pauses between action, in the weeks when nothing seemed to move, in the places where old desires fell away quietly. And now, you're standing in the upgraded version of your own life whether you realize it or not. What's required of you now isn't striving or chasing. It's agreement. You're not starting something new. You're saying yes to what's already arrived. But here's the catch, the new path needs your full consent. Not just in thought, but in energy, intention, and embodiment. That's why today matters. This is where you drop the last layer of hesitation and say, yes. I'm ready. I trust what's unfolding. In astrology, days like this are windows-thin veils between timelines. And Leo, your timeline has split. The version of you who keeps waiting for another sign, more certainty, a louder confirmation, that version will stay on pause. But the version of you who takes one step today, however small, enters the flow of what was designed for you all along. One of the most grounded ways to say yes to a new energetic chapter is through clear, conscious affirmation. Not because words are magic, but because they are structure. They anchor energy. So today, write this sentence: I claim my destiny and lead with light. Write it 3 times with your dominant hand so your conscious mind gets it. Then once with your non-dominant hand so your subconscious, your deeper emotional field, gets the message too. This isn't a ritual for performance. It's a handshake between your inner knowing and your physical world. Then, do something. It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe you say yes to a meeting you've been avoiding. Maybe you post that idea you've been sitting on. Maybe you clear your space, call a mentor, take a walk in silence while imagining the version of you already living this new chapter. The action isn't about achievement. It's about alignment. It's how you show your nervous system, your body, and your field that you're done negotiating with fear. And if something shows up, totally an invitation, a conversation, an intuitive nudge, don't overanalyze it. Open your heart. Receive it. Today isn't for second guessing. It's for agreeing with what your soul already knows. You're ready. The moment is now. So before you move on, make your choice real. Write your affirmation in the comments. Not for me, but for you. Let it live in the open air. Let the world witness it. Because once you put that energy into motion, the path will respond. It always does. And Leo, you didn't wait all this time for nothing. You waited to meet yourself here. At the door that only opens from the inside. Now turn the handle and walk through. Leo, this is not the end of your story, it's the real beginning. You don't need another sign. You don't need more permission. The universe already gave you the green light. You've been chosen not just to survive what you went through, but to thrive because of it. You've already passed the test, even if your external world hasn't caught up just yet. You've outgrown the version of yourself that was always waiting for a breakthrough. Now, you're stepping into the one who creates them. From this moment forward, it's no longer about waiting for the perfect time or hoping someone else sees your worth. It's about living like someone who already knows they're being led by something greater and choosing to respond with boldness, grace, and purpose. Let this be the moment you begin to live on purpose, not by default. Starting today, let your body become lighter. Say yes to the things that nourish you. Skip the noise, eat cleaner, breathe deeper, make room for divine signals to reach you. Let your spirit stretch. Try the one thing you've been avoiding, the one. That small change you've postponed for months may be the one that realigns your path. And if you've never done it before, try this: write a letter to your future self, 1 year from now. Seal it with intention. You'll be amazed when you reread it next September and see just how far you've come. So I'll ask you gently. What would you do if you couldn't fail? Who would you finally become if the fear of rejection disappeared? You're not the same person you were even last week. You're wiser now. You've walked through storms no one knows about. You carry light in places others tried to bury. So act from that place. Speak from that truth. You didn't come this far to repeat the past. You came to rise. If any part of this message spoke to something inside you, don't let it fade. Anchor it. Type your own soul affirmation in the comments. Let the universe hear your voice. Like this video if you felt the shift, and subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness so you don't miss the next message that's meant just for you. You've stepped into something powerful. Stay with it. Keep showing up for yourself. This is only the beginning. And remember, sometimes silence ends not with noise, but with clarity. Destiny doesn't always knock. Sometimes, it whispers, and today, you finally heard it.